right now. And again, we will be posting this recording in case you missed anything or you want to revisit any of these links. Again, thank you so much for joining today. Without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so for our agenda today, essentially what we'll be doing is going over the BE305 program and give you an introduction to benchmarking. And then the 102, this training will also be going over some report troubleshooting. So for those of you that have already kind of got started with the reporting process and need some help with going through some errors, we'll go through over the most common errors that we see come through. And then we'll go over some resources and a Q&A at the end here.
Sorry for the interrupt. Keisha, if you could raise your volume a bit.
Okay, yes, absolutely. Let's see here. I'll just go ahead and make sure I just talk louder just so y'all can hear me. Can you hear me all right now, Maya, if I raise my voice a little bit?
Yes, much better.
Okay, okay, great. Okay, so what is B305? So essentially, this program is for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Commercial buildings in Miami contribute to about 35% of the total greenhouse gas emissions. And this program aims to reduce emissions and advance the city's goal of a 60% GHG reduction by 2035 in comparison to 2018 levels. Again, the goal is to support building owners in tracking energy use annually and reducing citywide GHG pollution. How do we do this? The city of Miami adopted the Building Energy and Water Consumption Benchmarking and Retuning Ordinance, also known as B305, to guide owners in annual benchmarking, public sharing of energy data, and retuning buildings with recommended improvements. So this is kind of the time frame and deadlines for all buildings that are required to comply. It's the benchmarking and retuning deadlines here. So as you can see here, this is the building count breakdown of buildings by size. So 200,000 square feet and larger, and then smaller breakdowns in each row. The benchmarking deadline is June 30th each year. This deadline does not change. It is the same each year. And then retuning deadlines are here on the right-hand side. So that's going to be December 1st for these the largest buildings, and then in 2028, and then 2029 and 2030 for these building sizes here. As for the smaller buildings, this is optional for retuning. They are still required to submit annual benchmarking reports by June 30th. So the requirements for buildings, so like I mentioned, it's annual benchmarking on June 30th each year. Buildings 20,000 square feet and larger must report each year using the Energy Star Portfolio Manager platform, which we'll go over in a little bit. The performance report will be shared with everybody publicly. So this is on one of our maps. So whether or not you are in compliance or not submitted or exempt, this data will be shared publicly on our map, and I will show this towards the end here. And as the table prior to this slide mentioned, retuning is required every 5 years. Buildings 50,000 square feet and larger must complete a retuning every 5 years to keep building systems maintained, cleaned, and repaired. So these are some key points of the B305 ordinance. There are no city fees to submit your benchmarking report. We have a help desk that's here to help you every step of the way, and we can do phone calls, emails, and set up scheduled calls to do screen shares. There's no fees overall for benchmarking. And for the first year of benchmarking for compliance, there was no violations. So that was back when we first initiated this program. And then retuning, this must be completed by a qualified professional. It includes correcting low-cost deficiencies with a simple payback of 3 years or less. And then this is a map of what other cities and states also implement benchmarking programs. So as you can see here, it's pretty widespread throughout the United States. Over 50 cities, counties, and states have a benchmarking and transparency policy. Many of these go beyond benchmarking. What that means is that not only do they require annual benchmarking, but they also require folks to initiate some energy efficiency retrofits and retuning in order to increase the energy efficiency of their building. So what is the word benchmarking? It's a proven way to track a building's energy performance over time, whether that's month to month or year to year. It compares your building's energy use to similar buildings. So for example, if you have an office building that's 50,000 square feet, in Miami, your building will also be compared to other office buildings of 50,000 square feet, that similar size and use type within Miami and also across the United States. This helps owners and occupants spot opportunities to reduce energy waste and save money. It also encourages building owners to stay on top of upgrades and creating a clean environment for not only the community, but also for their tenants. There's a lot of benefits of benchmarking also. Helps you understand your building's performance compared to others. So office buildings, your office building compared to other office buildings, or your multifamily building compared to other multifamily buildings in the area. It also helps you identify opportunities to save money by reducing energy, and it supports better health and resource sustainability within the Miami community. So these are the two compliance pathways each year for June 30th, right? So we have the annual benchmarking report. So this is what most folks usually choose as a pathway for compliance. This is completed online through the Energy Star Portfolio Manager platform. This is a free online tool. The Energy Star Portfolio Manager platform is the software platform implemented by the United States EPA, and this is widely used by tens of thousands of buildings across the United States, whether or not they have to comply or not with benchmarking programs. It's just a great way to track energy usage for each tenant or just your building overall. And then submitting this initial report is the most time consuming, just setting up your account in Energy Star, getting that energy data and your property details uploaded in your account. That's the most time consuming part, but then after that, it's just maintaining that data and adding your additional energy data to your account. You can also request an exemption. So some buildings, during the year, the data collection year, so in this case it's 2025, they're undergoing unusual circumstances or building operations, right? So some folks have renovations going on, or they have a mass exodus of their tenants at their building. So the energy usage during 2025 is not a typical representative of how that energy usually is used. So in that case, we would rather have an exemption from you than a report, because we don't want you to submit a report that is not a true representation of your typical energy usage for your building. So examples of exemption requests are that your building's under construction or renovation due to upgrades, or a flood or something happened, and so 80% or more of your building has vacated for that year. Or, for example, you have a demolition permit, or your building did not receive energy or water service for the entire 12 months of 2025. So a lot of these exemption reasons have to do with energy or water service shutoffs or very, very low occupancy due to renovations, demolition plans, or anything of that like. So a lot of folks wonder, does my building have to comply? So essentially what you'll want to do is use our building ID lookup tool or map to find your building ID. I'll show you the map towards the end here, but each of these will get you to your building address to figure out, do I have a building ID? Is it in our list? I think the map is the easiest just because it's a little bit more easier because you can visually see the map and see where your building is and match that with the building on the map to see if you have an ID. The building lookup tool, it can be a little tricky, but the key trick here is less is more. So the building ID lookup tool, you can search your address, but we have the address down as what's in tax assessor. So it's most likely your tax assessor address or your parcel address. You may know it as your physical address or your utility address, right? So we may not be referring to the same address that you're usually used to. So try every variant of your building's address in this lookup tool. Some buildings have 4 or 5 different addresses, so try all of them in that tool to make sure you can find your ID. And less is more. If your building's 123 Maple Street, maybe just type in 123 to cast a wider net. It's an elastic search, so sometimes looking up your exact address won't give you the result that you want. You might need to just look up your street name or just your building number to maximize the results there. If you still can't find it, reach out to the help desk. If you're for sure your building is 20,000 square feet or larger, don't just assume you don't have to comply because you can't find your ID. It may be because it's under a different address, as I mentioned, so please reach out to the help desk so we can identify that for you. Buildings not covered by B305 are single-family homes, duplexes, residential multifamily homes with 5 units or less, industrial uses per designated standard industrial classification or SEAT codes 20 through 39. You can also see our ordinance for a more detailed and official list. And for exemptions, it's a little bit more detailed on exemptions. You can view the exemption form here. I'll show you that in a little bit. Pay close attention to the time periods and the specifics that are listed. For a lot of these exemptions, we have specific time periods that it must fulfill to be eligible. So for example, the property does not have a certificate of occupancy for 12 months of 2025, so it has to be for all 12 months. It doesn't have that certificate of occupancy or temporary certificate of occupancy. It's not just for 1 month, it has to be for all 12. Also for, demolition permit, it has to be for the entire building, not just a portion of it. So there's some keywords to pay attention to there. Of course, reach out to the help desk if you're unsure if your building is eligible for an exemption, and we can help work that out with you. What do you need to report? So first, going into that Energy Star account and creating your account there, adding your building information such as your property or properties, depending on how many have to comply. That building information is things like your gross floor area, the occupancy of the building, also going to be other details like hours of operation and amount of people that are working there on an average day. You'll also need to include your Miami building ID. This is a unique ID that's assigned to each building. It's the letter M as in Miami followed by 5 numeric digits. So for example, M12345. That helps us distinguish and tie your reports to the submission. And then your energy and water usage will be entered into Energy Star. So that's whole building energy and water usage from January 1st through December 31st of 2025. That's going to be electric, natural gas, propane, diesel, whatever you use to power your building, solar, and then your water usage. These are some of the units that are most likely used for your bills. Electricity is always going to be in kilowatt hours. Natural gas, depending on what your bill says, it could be therms, and then kilogallons for water. Lastly, the reporting link. This is the 2026 Miami B305 data request. Essentially, this is the data request that you select to submit your data. This is really important to keep in mind that we come up with a new data request each year. It's a new data request, so make sure you find that on our website. It's pretty much on the front page, and you can click that, and then it'll link you to your Energy Star where you can submit. Okay, so for whole building aggregate data, Florida Power and Light, you can receive a PDF from them that aggregates your electric usage for your building. We have a really great how-to video right here. I'll also show you in a little bit here our website where you can find this information. For buildings with 5 or more electric meters, the building owner or managing company must provide a letter of authorization. So that's just the building owner themselves. They do not need to get a letter of authorization from each tenant. That's only just the building owner. If you have less than 5 meters, there are privacy concerns with that, just because we need to get a letter of authorization from each tenant. So if you have 4 tenants, you'll need to get an letter of authorization from each tenant there. Some tips and tricks for getting aggregated data from Florida Power and Light. The requester must be the building owner or managing company, because that's most likely the person that's going to be on that main account. And then make sure Florida Power and Light knows that the request is for this benchmarking program. And you can also call them at this number if you need any additional help. This is just a short example of what you're looking at to get whole building aggregate data. There's 3 forms that you need to fill out. No matter how many tenants you have 3 forms. You need to download these forms and email them to this email here. Again, that how-to video is a great resource. It walks you through the whole process. And I'll show you where to find that on our website too. Okay, and then additional utility resources. This is the contact information for Miami-Dade Water and Sewer, Tico Gas, and Florida City Gas. An Energy Star Portfolio Manager overview. So again, it's a free online tool offered by the EPA to track your energy. It helps people benchmark their performance for their buildings and compare your performance across the board of other buildings with similar size and use type. Why benchmark with Energy Star Portfolio Manager? So this is a pretty official platform. So over 250,000 commercial properties use ESPM. It supports over 80 property use types. It provides energy use intensity. So this is your energy usage per square foot. It's a breakdown of your energy usage across your building. And then this gives you an Energy Star score also. And just having that transparency and that awareness of what energy your building is using. Usually owners and property managers are more aware and implement energy savings measures more quickly. So after you submit your report, essentially your building will either come into compliance or it'll go into pending revisions. And again, since this is the 102 training, I wanted to go into some more detailed breakdowns of what the most common errors or misunderstandings are for reporting. So when you submit your report through Energy Star, the next day you get a notification from our team on whether or not you're in compliance or in pending revisions. If you're in compliance, great, you don't have to comply to the next year. However, if you're in pending revisions, then that means that you have some report errors that you need to fix and you need to resubmit to come into compliance. So this is usually how our emails look when we send that back to you, whether it's in compliance or pending. And then this is just a screenshot of the Miami map of all these buildings that are in compliance, or pending or exempt. Your building will be red if it's not submitted, yellow if it's in pending, and then green if it's in compliance. So this is the transparency map that I was referring to earlier. And then to make sure that we receive your report, in Energy Star, you'll want to make sure that you add your building ID. You want to make sure there's no spaces in your building ID. You capitalize the letter M, and there's no funky commas or periods in that ID. That's super important. If you enter your ID wrong in Energy Star, we will not be able to receive your report and you won't receive a compliance letter. In order for us to link your building with that submission link, you have to have that ID in Energy Star. Our how-to guide shows you how to add that in Energy Star. Like I mentioned earlier, we have a new link every year. So the link resets, so you just have to make sure you grab the newest link off of our website each year. Don't hold on to old links because it will not work. So links from previous years. So just make sure to use the 2026 link this year. Some other folks may not receive our emails because they're not added to our safe senders list. Sometimes our emails will go to spam. So right now, if you have the opportunity to multitask, add this email to your safe senders list so it doesn't go to spam. Some companies will have pretty high security settings on their accounts, so our emails can often go to spam, especially since our domain ends in .com. So just make sure if you do submit your report, you're checking your spam and junk folders, and you're making sure that you added your building ID correctly. Or you may miss our communications and notifications that are pretty important from us. And lastly, as a default, you can always check your report status on the transparency map. Common report errors, we're going to go over a handful of these and how to resolve those. Every time you report errors, just email the help desk and with additional information or ask us, how to navigate report errors. We're happy to help. Again, we can either hop on a screen share or walk you through step by step on how to get your report into compliance. The main one that we usually get is a gross floor area discrepancy. So all of our gross floor areas come from tax assessor. And so if you have a different gross floor area that you're reporting with that's 10% above or below what we have, then what you'll want to do is send us a blueprint, CAD drawing, or other official document that shows, what the gross floor area is of your building. And then we can update our records and then we can move you into compliance. But if you have that documentation, please send that over. Another big issue is low or high energy use intensity. Most often, if someone has a low energy use intensity, it's because they didn't include common areas and tenant spaces. It's very, very important to remember that when we're asking for whole building data, that you're reporting both tenant and common area spaces. Not just the ones that you get bills for, you also need to report for every space in the building. For high energy use intensity, you may be using the wrong energy units when you add your energy, or you might be double counting your energy usage. Maybe you created 2 meters on accident in Energy Star. So to resolve this, say you have low energy use intensity because half your building vacated, reach out to the help desk and let us know that. We can move your report in compliance if, we have proof that, half your building vacated because some tenants were going out of business, or because there was damage to the building, so they had to vacate. You can also provide any energy data that your utility provided you, just to prove that, hey, my entries are correct in Energy Star. But usually our help desk will help you navigate through this, so reach out to us if you have any questions on that. Similar thing for low or high water use intensity. If you have this error, go ahead and send us a bill from 1 month of 2025 just to show, like, hey, I have been entering my usage incorrectly. Again, make sure that the water usage is for not only just the common areas, but for the tenant spaces also. Always double check what units you're using for energy and water. That's a common errors when people use the wrong units. So just check your bill and just see what units you're billed in and make sure that matches an Energy Star. Also, again, make sure you have all common area and tenant space usage in your report, or you will get flagged for that. No natural gas. A lot of buildings in Miami only have just electricity. They don't have natural gas. So if you get that error, reach out to the help desk, confirm that it's an all electric building, and we can move your building into compliance. For no electricity data, sometimes this error will happen if there are gaps or overlaps in the data, or if you're including more than or less than 365 days of 2025 of that data. So when you enter your energy usage in Energy Star, it's very, very picky. So you want to make sure that you have all 365 days or more of energy data for 2025. Some bills kind of bleed into 2024, the end of 2024 or the beginning of 2026. That's totally fine. You don't have to do any math or breakdown of your utility bills. Just make sure they're 30 to 31 day cycles, and then that will go through smoothly on our end. Drastic change in electric or natural gas use. What you'll want to provide is, information on vacancies or tenant changes or just abnormal energy use during that year. Drastic change means that you reported last year, and then this year your electric is way higher or your natural gas is way higher or lower than the previous year. Sometimes buildings are newer and they've become fully occupied the following year. So if that's the case, let us know. Anything to justify that jump or in that energy usage. Anytime you have errors, you want to make sure you resubmit your report. Energy Star and then our system, they're created by different entities, right? So Energy Star is through the federal government, and then our software is our software. So for those to connect, you have to, link your report to us through that 2026 submission link, right? So when you submit your report and attach that ID, it comes to us. If you make any kind of changes in your Energy Star, it doesn't auto feed to our system. We have no idea that you made any changes in Energy Star until you actually resubmit your report. So in the how-to guide, it shows you how to submit your report, how to submit your report initially, but to resubmit your report after you make edits, there's one extra step, and it's this step 4. You'll want to select generate a new response, then send your response again. This step here is kind of like clicking refresh on Google Chrome. It's just saying, hey, re-pull in this data again, and then you can go on with the typical steps how to submit your report. All these steps are in the how-to guide except for step 4. This is something that's special that happens when you need to resubmit your report. So just know you just gotta hit that button to refresh, then you can submit it back to us so you can account for those changes that you made in Energy Star. All right, and these are our resources. So we have, benchmark305.com is our main website. This is where you can get your how-to guide. This is also where you can get utility data information on how to get aggregate data from Florida Power and Light. This is where you obtain the newest submission link and any kind of recordings, such as this webinar link, this webinar recording. And then our help desk, our help desk is small, it's very personalized. So this is our email here and our phone. So we can really provide in-depth, one-on-one personalized support with you. It's not a massive help desk that most people are used to. It is a very small and personalized one. So we can help you from start to finish for benchmarking all the way through. We're specifically trained to help folks with this. So my advice is to always just schedule a call with us or email us. And then those are the easiest ways to get a hold of us, and we can help you walk through the benchmarking process. It can be overwhelming for folks. It's very new for most people. We're professionals at this. We, do this on a daily basis, and we can get you into compliance. Usually I would say it takes 2 to 3 scheduled calls to get you into compliance from start to finish. So if you have the patience just to schedule a couple calls with us, we can help walk you through that process pretty easily for your building. We also have our FAQs, how-to guide, and videos. I know a lot of people are visual learners, so these videos are great. Our ordinance, exemption form, and just more details on the GHG plan here. Again, we'll be posting this whole webinar on our website, and then so you can click these links and get to these easily. Right now, before we hop into Q&A, I wanted to walk you through the website and then some of our resources, just so you have an idea of where to find things and how to use our resources. And then we'll open it up to a full Q&A here. Okay, so this is our website. It's not too overwhelming. We got a couple tabs up here. The home website is going to give you just some information on the program itself. Here's the link to find your building ID. So you can select this, and then again, this is where you can find your building ID. Usually I tell people, start with that just so you know, if you're unsure like how big your building is or if you have to comply, search by your address and your street. I always say less is more. Make sure you select the state here. This is a tool for a lot of benchmarking programs in the United States, so make sure you click Florida and then Miami. See my buildings, 1 Glen Avenue. I'll just put the number 1 here and then click search, and then that pulls up any address with the street address with 1. So I got 1 Southeast 3rd, 1 Grove, 1 Glen Royal Parkway, and then it gives you the building ID here. Again, it's a letter M with 5 digits. So say this is my building, then I'm like, okay, this is my building ID here. You can also just type in the street name, and that'll give you even a more specific search. So here's my building here, let's say. So that's the building ID search lookup tool. Again, try all addresses that are at your building because we may know it as a different address since several buildings have 1 to 5 different addresses. If you want more information on the ordinance, this will be here. And then the link that you need to access each year is going to be in the How to Comply section. So we'll click How to Comply here. And then when you're ready to submit your benchmarking report, you'll click this button here. And then this is the link. So when you select this link, it'll bring you to your Energy Star so you can complete the steps to submit. And this is where you can also submit an exemption if you think you're eligible. So these are those two options, like I said before. This is where you submit your report for with the most updated link, or if you think you're exempt, you can select this button here and review our options here. Again, that's on the How to Comply page here. Our how-to guide is also on this page, so most people are going to be visiting this page the most. You can find your building ID, submit here, and understand how to submit or how to create your report here. This is our how-to guide. It breaks it down into 9 steps. It has a lot of visuals and screenshots through Energy Star to help you with this process. This is our FAQs here. If you have any questions, you can sort through any of these questions here. And we have different categories up here. This is for building owners, Energy Star, and then benchmarking requirements. Utility data. This is where all of the information for utility data lives. So this is that slide I showed you earlier. This is TECO. This is their phone number and their email. And then this is the Florida Power and Light, how to request aggregated data. So these are those 3 forms I was telling you about. You need to fill these out and send them to FPL. This how-to video walks you through that entire process. The video is, I think, about 4 minutes long, so it's not that long, and people are visual learners, so this is very, very helpful. Florida City and Gas and Water and Sewer are here. So to get started, what I would do is go to the How to Comply section, read through the how-to guide, familiarize yourself with that, find your building ID, and then, start with Energy Star and start getting your data together. It does take a while to get utility data gathered from your utilities and to get aggregated data. So I would start this process as soon as possible. Benchmarking season, these utilities get pretty swamped with requests. There's around 1,500 buildings that have to comply this year. So there's a lot of requests going to these utilities to get data. So make sure you start this process very early, I would say right now, because it can take several weeks to get that data. And June 30th is already around the corner, so I would make sure to start that utility request and then start digging into your benchmarking and starting that process. The map here, this is the public benchmarking map, so I wanted to show you how to use this real quick. So this is the benchmarking map. So this is all the buildings within the Miami city limits that have to comply. Again, anything in red is not submitted. Yellow is pending, so they have some report errors they're working through. Green is in compliance, and black is exempt, so that's an approved exemption. So say if your building is located in the southeast corner of this intersection here, and you can't find your building ID on the lookup tool, you can just zoom in, find your building, and be like, okay, this is my building, and then it'll list your building ID and the address as we know it based off the parcel address, and then your status. That can be a quicker way for you to find your building ID. Again, if you need help with that, please reach out to the help desk if you can't find it. You can toggle between different reporting years. property types. This is open to the public, so anybody, whether or not they have to comply, can view this. This just gives transparency to the public on which buildings are complying and which buildings are not complying with this ordinance. This shows you some metrics here of Energy Star score, average score for most buildings that are in compliance, and their energy use intensity, which is again energy usage per square foot. And without further ado, I just wanted to check to see if we had any questions that were unanswered. It looked like the chat, we had a lot of good questions in the chat. So if we had any good questions, please let us know. Let's see here. And Kristen or Maya, if you see anything, any questions that I need to answer out loud, let me know, that have come through the chat that just need more details. I'm happy to answer those. Let's see here. Okay, so looks like we do have a question in here. It says the June 30th deadline, can we get an extension? So for the June 30th deadline, that is the deadline for each year, this year and going forward. If you're struggling with something and you can't meet that June 30th deadline, please reach out to the help desk and let us know. You know, the help desk is your main line here, right? So if you have any kind of delays or if you suspect that you won't be able to comply by June 30th, please reach out to the help desk and keep us informed. Say, hey, I'm still reaching out to my tenants to get utility data. I probably will need another week, you know, and we'll say, okay, we'll reach back out to us in a week, and then give us your update in a week after that and tell us what's going on. Just kind of give us the play-by-play, giving us a paper trail of, you know, the progress that you have with your report, what you're doing, the efforts you're putting into it is the most important thing, right? So if you're not compliant by that June 30th deadline, but you've been in touch with us and have let us know that, like, hey, I'm still trying to get that last tenant's data, you know, that's totally fine. We can be flexible with that within a reasonable amount of time. Okay, let's see some good questions. And if you want to also unmute yourself and ask a question, totally go ahead. Or if you want to just throw it in the chat now, I can read it out loud and then I can answer that question more in detail. Or if you asked something earlier in the chat and you want more details on that answer, please go ahead and add that in the chat. Okay, so we have a question. If a restaurant tenant uses gas within our commercial property, but the gas account and service are registered directly under the tenant and not the building, are we still required to submit gas reports? Great question. Yes. So if your tenant uses that gas, you still need to obtain that gas data from your tenant. You can work with your tenant. I would shoot them an email and let them know, like, hey, this is for an ordinance with the city of Miami. Please provide your energy data. They can give you a spreadsheet or just your bills directly in PDF attachments. Most tenants, what they do is they either just give them a spreadsheet of their usage month by month if they want to make it a little bit more private, or they can just give you your bills directly in several PDFs via email. But the key word here is whole building data. So for these reports, we want every single tenant and all common area data within that building. So just keep that in mind, and that's why it's also a good idea to start this reporting process sooner than later, because communicating with tenants can be time consuming. I would always make sure you're communicating with your tenants via email so you have a paper trail. So say your tenant is not responsive or is refusing to provide that data, please reach out to the help desk and let us know what's going on so we're aware of that. Okay, we have another question. If a building is mixed use, 60,000 square feet commercial, and 65% or 65 20,000 residential. It looks like, yes, so all property use types do have to comply except for those SEEK codes 20, I believe it's 20 through 39. So if you're an industrial or a manufacturing building with a SEEK code 20 through 39, please reach out to us. You will be eligible for an exemption. Okay, and it looks like there's a correction there on there. 65 residential, every unit metered under a tenant. Yeah, so for residential buildings, yes, a lot of the times each tenant will have their own electric meter, right? So that's where Florida Power and Light comes into play. So going to our website, let me show you. So if you do have, a residential building and you have a lot of tenants, right? So what you'll want to do is request aggregated data from Florida Power and Light through these steps here. They will provide a PDF of aggregated data for all 65 units. So those of you, you have 1, 2, or 3 electric units, you can still ask for aggregated data. You'll just need to get a letter of authorization from each tenant. But if you have 5 or more electric meters or tenants at your building, Florida Power and Light can aggregate that for you. Because obviously that would be a lot of work to email all 65 residents at your building. So that's why we have this aggregated data option here. Great question. Okay, we have another question. Is there a way for my tenants to submit the information to you directly or a compliance letter from you to our tenants to avoid the landlord being penalized? So that would be kind of like a manual report. Unfortunately, all reports have to come through Energy Star, through that official platform. So if your tenants have that data, make sure you're manually entering your tenants' data through Energy Star through that platform. We can't accept manual reports. We have to have them or in writing or through just a bunch of PDF bills. Make sure you have those added in Energy Star, and so when you submit, that pulls over. The whole point of that is to calculate your energy usage and run all the algorithms in the back end that calculate your building's usage and your Energy Star, all of that good stuff. That's how we evaluate whether or not you're going to be in compliance. We can't do that manually, unfortunately. But again, if you struggle with obtaining utility data, make sure you have a paper trail of trying to obtain that data from your tenant or tenants, so you have that proof when you talk to the help desk. A lot of great questions. Keep them coming. Let's see if I can find any more here. Yep, another great question on the map. So anything that's, not colored, those are going to be most likely buildings that are under 20,000 square feet, number one, or they're going to be, duplexes or multifamily under 5 units, or private residential homes, or they might be under SEEK codes 20 through 39. So maybe they're a steel manufacturing company or a lumber manufacturing, something like that. Those extreme manufacturing industrial types are not subject to this ordinance. So that's why you're seeing the blanks on here. Okay, and we have another question on here. I kind of went over this earlier, but it is a good question and a very common question, so I just wanted to cover this. What if the building ID shows a GFA that is dramatically different than the actual GFA? So say this is your building and it says we have it as 27,000 square feet. Again, we're pulling this from Tax Assessor, the only authorized database that is reliable. If you have something different, say your building's actually 45,000 square feet, or if it's under 20,000 square feet, please be prepared and send us a blueprint, CAD drawing, or any similar document that shows why you think it's 40,000 square feet. Send that to the help desk, and we'll be happy to work through that with you and update that gross floor area. We're happy to change our gross floor area on our end to match yours, as long as you have a valid document that shows what the square footage should be. Yep, and thanks so much, Maya or Maria. The FPL aggregated data PDF that they do send over to you will be a monthly breakdown of your aggregated usage. So all 65 units will be, all of their electric usage will be added together and thrown into a month by month calendarized PDF. So it'll say, for example, January 1st to February 1st, 100,000 kilowatt hours. And that 100,000 kilowatt hours will include all 65 of your units. So you'll have probably 12 entries that you'll just manually enter into Energy Star. It goes by pretty quick. So you just have to enter those 12 entries in Energy Star, and boom, you're done adding all your data for all 65 energy electric meters. Looks like we have another really good question. Your property is mislabeled as a grocery store, but it's actually light industrial manufacturing. Great question. So again, if your building has something mislabeled, then make sure you go ahead and just reach out to the help desk, and we can update the property use type. The property use type that we have usually is correct, but if it is incorrect, we're happy to update our records. Just let us know what kind of goes on at that building, who your tenants are, so we can update that property use type. When you submit your Energy Star report, that use type will automatically also update in our system. You may get a flag for that use type being very different, so just reach out to us before you submit your report to help us correct your gross floor area or property use type if it's incorrect, and have those documents ready. That will reduce a lot of back and forth in the future. So my advice is to find your ID, look at the map, see what we have listed as the square footage. If it's incorrect, reach out to us first before you submit your report, so then you won't get an error. If you wait to reach out to us, then you'll submit your report, but you'll get an error, and then it takes a lot of more back and forth and corrections to get that GFA updated. So I'd rather you nip it in the butt and just reach out to us prior to and let us know what's incorrect about your building, so we can match our records before you submit. Okay, and we have another really good question. So your building is 9 stories, 1 through 7 is occupied, and you're conducting a renovation for 8 and 9. So would this qualify for an exemption? So for this one, we would look at this option here. The covered property had a physical occupancy of less than 50% throughout the calendar year. So in your case, you would have to look at your rent roll, if that's residential, and see if less than 50% was occupied through the calendar year. So as long as it meets these specific components here, then you would be eligible. To kind of, I guess, like break it down, say you're building, 1 through 6 were unoccupied throughout the year, then yes, you'd definitely be eligible, because 6 out of 9 floors were unoccupied. So I would look at I'm not sure how your gross floor area is dispersed throughout each floor. Maybe you have, or your usage is dispersed throughout each floor, but it kind of depends on where that occupancy, how that's dispersed on each floor, and whether or not you would qualify. But, you know, sometimes I say just go ahead and submit if you believe that this does apply, and then we'll evaluate and let you know if we need more information or if you're eligible. All right, I know we're at time here, but please let us know if you have any questions. Reach out to our help desk. We're super helpful. We're happy to help. You know, we love helping people out. So this website's going to be super helpful. If you go to the how to comply section, last thing I'll say is that you go to all videos, and then our most recent training will be posted here. This is ours from last month. We'll post this training here in this section. So how to comply, scroll down to benchmarking how-to videos, and that'll be available. Thank you all so much for joining. Thank you so much for all the great questions. We'll look forward to hearing you on the help desk. Please reach out. And thanks again so much. Have a great day.